Hello everybody and welcome to this week's edition of Feature Focus. I'm back with Dan Parke. Hey Dan, how you doing today?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and we're actually going to be delving very much into artifacts. Dan's going to be telling us about some pretty critical changes that are happening to the artifacts. You know, we're outlining the purpose of them, so I'm just going to let him go ahead and talk about artifacts. Tell us about them.
Sure. Okay, so today I want to talk about the Artifact Foundry and the artifacts in it. We're going to talk about how we balance our artifacts. And we balance our artifacts with a purpose in mind. We want our artifacts to have a distinct role to play. And when we look at how we should balance an artifact, if it needs to be stronger, and if it needs to be brought down, we look about how that's better fulfilling its purpose. So we'll talk about how we come to the decision to make a balancing change. Talk about some balance changes that are going to be about emphasizing the purpose of an artifact. We'll also talk about how sometimes we find a new sort of niche or role for artifacts, and how we emphasize that, and a little bit about how the Amplifier system, which will be something you guys will be able to dig into in greater detail in the December update, has influenced the balance of our artifacts.
So we're going to talk about exactly what is the process behind balancing. You know, what is balance about?
So balance is about making the game fun, making it competitive. We look to a number of different sources when we want to decide on how the balance of our game should change. So we look at our pro players, watch how they're playing the game, what they're doing, the kinds of artifacts they're using, when they're using them, on which champions. We also look at guides that are on websites like Dawnbase. We look when an artifact shows up a whole lot, sometimes maybe more than we expected. That's kind of like a red flag. Maybe we want to...
Fragment of Mogo.
So we want our artifacts to have a purpose. We don't want our artifacts to be the right choice all the time.
Right.
So that's
it's not that fun when you're like, okay, well this artifact is so strong for most roles that we should get it every time. It takes a lot of the choice and a lot of the counterplay out of it, right?
That's right. Yep. And in addition to that, we also collect metrics from people playing the game in general. So everyone is effectively contributing to the balance of our game because it tells us how certain artifacts on certain champions contribute to success or failure in a match.
Right.
So let's talk about an example about some of the artifact changes that we've done that are coming up in the December update based on some of these sources.
Sure.
The harvest keywords, these are the ones that show up on the Crime Bible and on Joker's Crowbar and on Two Faces Coin.
And those are, I'm sorry, didn't mean to.
Yeah.
So harvest is when you collect coins and
those are the health collectors. So the harvesters are the ones that grow based on kills and assists or on time.
Right.
And when I say a keyword, I'm talking about those purple or green text effects that are on an artifact. We call those keywords. And the harvests are passives. They just happen. They're triggered based on an event. And a while back, we saw the Crime Bible and Joker's Crowbar showing up on lots and lots of builds. Lots of guides are like, buy them, buy both of them, rush them, get them now. And yep. We want that to be the right choice sometimes, but we didn't want it to be the choice that you made all the time. So we did a few things to tune them down. We made the second tier more expensive. We made them stack every 90 seconds instead of every 60 seconds, and we lowered the value per stack. So we made changes on a bunch of fronts. This change, this update, we're actually going to come back and lower the cost of the second tier so you can start building stacks faster. And some of the mods that you will see in the December update will actually let you further influence it. So if you really like Joker's Crowbar, you can decide that you want to actually get 2 stacks every time you get a kill or assist instead of just 1.
Oh, that's actually super amazing.
if it's the artifact for you, then take the mod.
Yeah, that's very nice. It definitely gives you infinite more options in terms of that sort of approach instead of just going, oh, well, I'd like to take it, but you know, 1 stack seems like probably something that's not that viable over time.
Yeah.
That's good. Looking forward to that.
So a couple other examples. You mentioned the fragment of Mogo. I believe there was a Twitch stream, it's probably a month ago now or something, and Anuvan was on, just randomly chatting with people, and I think he threw out the question, best artifact, and there were a lot of replies that all looked like fragment of Mogo. I think there was one guy who said Ruby of Life, but most people said fragment of Mogo.
Why do you think that is? Like, what was it about fragment of Mogo that was so unanimously viable?
Fragment Mogo was good at what we wanted to do, but it was good at a lot of other things too. Right. It had a lot of stats, a lot of useful stats. It pretty much had cooldown just thrown in there on top of everything else. So we decided to focus it in on health and armor and its ability to use its active to wait in there and survive a while you're pumping out the damage. And we've stripped cooldown off of it altogether. And those are just examples of how when an artifact is the right choice on perhaps every champion, or a lot more than we anticipated or wanted, really,
yeah.
then we'll focus it in on what it's for.
Excellent. So that's going to be probably something you'll see much more often on an Enforcer or a Bruiser instead of seeing it on every single person ever.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Another example of change that happened, this is some of the stuff that came from forums on the beta. The Refundables. The Refundable is another keyword. It's one that lets you sell back either the Promethean Mace or Hawkman's Harness or the Radion Shard back for full value at the top tier. And we've been tuning these guys as well. We want the Refundable to not be the right choice all the time, but to be something that is viable if what you want to do is put some of your credits to work while you're waiting to build something bigger.
Right.
So a while back we made it so that they all sold back at 1,500 and 100%. And in this change up in the December update, we're going to make it so that the stats while you have it are more efficient. They're still not as efficient as if you were buying an artifact straight out, but they are more efficient than they were before.
Excellent. That's definitely going to be a pretty big change. Refundable items are a really unique concept in terms of where to allocate your credits. So it's going to be interesting to see how people fit that into each specific game as it applies to them. Yeah.
Hopefully Refundables are something that you can use for a little flexibility and getting some money for your stats, and also, you know, not exactly telegraphing what credit, what artifact you're going to be going for. So someone might see you're going for Hawkman's Harness, but what are you going to sell that back for?
No idea. Oh, that's actually very true. I didn't even honestly think about that concept, is that you've got that filling up an inventory slot and people don't really know which direction you're taking your final build into. So that's pretty fantastic.
Great. So that's purpose. Purpose of Refundables.
Yes.
Should we talk about emphasizing purpose?
Yeah, purpose is pretty important for artifacts, I think.
So we had a couple of artifacts which people would buy pretty much all the time if you're within a certain role. And it's not the wrong thing. You know, Joe Chills, I'm not surprised if that shows up in the builds of most of our marksmen.
Yeah, pretty standard, right?
Yeah, and it is kind of like the epitome of what a marksman wants. It's huge damage and some good crits because you're doing some basic attacks pretty frequently.
Hopefully.
Yes. However, with some of the percentage penetration items that we had, that would be the Atomic Axe, or with, why am I blanking on this right now?
Coda Blade?
Book of Eternity.
Oh, Book of Eternity.
Percentage penetration.
Right,
those were giving a great amount of damage, raw damage, in addition to the percentage penetration, which meant that to give that many stats, they had to be more expensive.
Right.
So if you were buying them, you were getting good damage, and you were getting this penetration right on top of it. What we wanted you to do is be able to buy it just for the penetration.
Right.
We're going to put damage on it. Damage is still on it, but we dialed down the damage and we lower the cost. So if you need to get that percentage penetration because you're counter building a team that's stacking attack armor or power armor because you're rolling faces, destroying people, and they're trying to defend against it, well, you can buy it, but you won't just buy it because you also want the raw damage.
Right.
It's a good choice, but there are other choices for getting better damage if you don't need the penetration.
I like that. It incentivizes you to think about what you really need, because you can sacrifice the penetration for more power or a different skill entirely, like lifesteal or something. Power lifesteal, of course.
If the other team is going all offense and they're not buying any defenses, then you don't need the penetration. You might be better off just buying something that is going to give you more raw damage and another stat that you want.
Or maybe you don't even care about cutting through the people who are building the power armor, and you just want to take the squishies out, and then, you know, the enforcers can run around, and what are they going to do? You know?
That's right.
So that's cool. I like it.
So some other changes in play. It's beta, and we decide that an artifact is perfect the way it is, and then people start playing with it, and we realize that there are new purposes to which it is being put, or we found that there's a niche that nobody's filling. So this is when we actually sometimes shift an artifact a little bit so that it fits a purpose. We've discovered a new purpose for it. And so we do changes to emphasize the purpose that we want it to fill. And a great example of this is a change that's coming to the Sword of Baywolf in the December update. Sword of Baywolf had good attack damage and decent power armor, but honestly, the role of that artifact is to protect you against burst damage.
Right.
Burst power damage specifically. So we're actually dialing down the damage a little bit, still good damage, dialing up power armor quite a bit, and we're also putting in a power damage only shield at the 2nd tier and boosting the one at the 3rd tier.
Right.
So Sword of Baywolf, good choice. You're not sacrificing all of the damage, but it's definitely a great choice if you're getting bursted down a lot by a power damage champion and you want to be able to survive that burst and then retaliate.
Makes sense. I mean, it was originally for attack damage people, so you either had bruisers and enforcers going for it or a marksman, and as a marksman it almost felt like you'd get it with the shield secondary and with the damage first.
Yes.
And it was kind of like a little bit of a bonus, like, oh, I also got the shield that keeps me alive a little bit longer. But really, if you die so instantly, you probably don't really need that damage. So it definitely makes more sense, I think, to put the power armor above the attack damage.
We want you to want the Sword of Baywolf for its counter blaster burst survivability, and you'll get some damage on it as well, but that's what's main purpose for. In fact, we took Desperate Endurance, which was on that artifact, off of it because it wasn't about the lifesteal. Lifesteal as a stat didn't show up on the artifact. And in doing that, and we were looking at some of our other artifacts, we realized that there's some other ones that could actually be sharpened in their purpose as well. So another change that's coming in the December update is to Eclipso's Diamond. And this is focusing on it being for counter blaster survivability and sustain as someone who deals power damage. So we've taken the Desperate Endurance keyword off of Sword of Baywolf and put it on Eclipso's Diamond. We've dialed down the straight up power damage on Eclipso's Diamond, and we've basically upped its power armor and focused it in on power lifesteal. So now if you drop below 50% health, you're going to be getting powered lifesteal in addition to the power lifesteal that's on the artifact already, and you'll also get attack lifesteal because, hey, you might throw in a few basics while you're at it. And now this is an artifact that you buy because you want the sustain out of it. You want the lifesteal out of it.
Oh,
it'll still give you power damage, but it won't give you as much. It's not like you're going to go there for the 100 power damage and all these other things coming along as well.
Right.
You want it for the lifesteal.
So Eclipso's Diamond now has power armor.
Yes.
Being the biggest, well, I don't want to say being the biggest change, but that's actually really awesome. I'm definitely looking forward to trying that out. So it's the same value of power lifesteal with the exception of when Desperate Endurance prop.
Yes, and then you're getting 10% more power lifesteal and 10% attack lifesteal.
That seems really exciting. I feel like power lifesteal has been somewhat of a neglected stat in the game just because raw damage was pretty accessible.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely interested in people seeing, like, trying out how power lifesteal works.
Yes, I mean, you could take that and the Cord Gambit and have a ton of power lifesteal.
Sounds
put that on
so
Joker.
awesome.
And even more
oh my
power
god, like
lifesteal.
50% power lifesteal.
You could troll all
Oh
day.
jeez.
Yes.
Yes, I'm actually really excited for this.
Yes, because you like Joker.
Yeah, I love Joker.
Yes.
So besides Eclipso's Diamond, any other artifacts that have seen some change?
So I mean, another thing that we looked at is where are there niches that don't really have a great aspirational artifact or don't have enough, and we looked at some hybrid choices. And while Sai Scimitar is there and Sai Scimitar is very strong, it really it was kind of alone in that place. It's kind of lonely.
Very
Sai
true.
Scimitar.
Yeah.
And
awesome,
Shades,
but lonely.
awesome but lonely. Now Shades Cane is going to come along. Shades Cane was a hybrid item already, but it wasn't really an end game one. And so we've actually made it so that you can spend more on it. We've raised the cost of the 2nd and the 3rd tiers so that, and given you more stats, because that would be appropriate.
Right.
Make it cost more, make you feel better about it. No, and you get more attack damage and more power damage on it. And actually, based on a community suggestion, we added a very different keyword to it. We took off Power Burst, and we've added on a Tier 3 keyword, which is called Darkness Manipulation. And as you hit people with basic attacks, you stack attack damage and stack power damage. And as you keep hitting them, you keep gaining their stacks. So it's very clearly, when you put it next to the Sai Scimitar, which when you use a skill, your next attack does bonus damage. This is sort of the other side of that coin. As you keep doing basic attacks, you're doing more damage, and then you can unleash maybe some skills that scale with power damage.
That is intense.
Yes.
That is super cool. That seems, it keeps you, a stacking item like that, that's mid-combat, keeps you so on your toes when you're in the middle of battle. So that's perfect for especially people who want to be high red. Like I really wish people built Gaslight Batman hybrid more often because I love bat fighting through people and killing them.
Yes.
So I'm definitely interested in
like
seeing how that
kick?
works. It's so good. Like a line through them that does like hundreds of power damage. It's amazing.
It is very good.
So I'm hoping that maybe people will pick up Shades Kane more, and of course with the release of Mecha Wonder Woman, I'm thinking that'd be pretty good on her as well.
Yes, I think with Mecha Wonder Woman, who likes to attack and attack often, this is going to be a very good artifact.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Next topic, balancing artifacts and amplifiers.
Yep, so balancing the artifacts with the amplifier. There's still a lot of amplifiers, and amplifiers we're actually going to be covering in bulk in next feature focus. Right now we're just going to be talking about how they compare to the artifacts and, you know, all the artifacts that have been changed and our ideas behind that. So we can let you go ahead and start talking about those.
So as we've been digging into the amplifiers, and you guys have been using the preview sets, and also in our pre-testing and stuff like that, we're learning more about how they work balance-wise. That balance has carried back through into the artifacts as well. So there's a mod, for example, that you can put on Zeiss goggles. Zeiss goggles, the critical chance on it, we actually found was maybe a little bit too strong. So we realized that actually we should be looking at critical chance in general. And what we realized is when we changed the critical damage bonus, the default used to be a 50% bonus when you crit, and then we changed it to be 2x, but we hadn't increased the credit cost of buying crit on an artifact. In general, we balance our artifacts by sort of assigning a credit value per point of the stat, and we hadn't reevaluated that when we made this increase to how much damage crit did. So crit chance is going to be a little more expensive, and we discovered this in part because of how valuable it was in our local testing when people could choose to take this mod on Zeiss goggles, and everyone did. Again, everyone's doing it, can't be cool. Okay. So we're changing the per stat cost of crit chance. We also looked around and we saw, hey, you know, we need to actually dial up the cost of move speed, and we needed to dial up the cost of health regeneration as well. And so that's a change that's rippled through a bunch of different artifacts.
Yeah, crit chance definitely seems to be a unanimously excellent stat for somebody that deals attack damage very quickly. So I'm thinking that people were not abusing it, but definitely taking advantage of it in the sense that they knew it was really cost efficient to get crit chance. So it'll be interesting to see the way that pans out, knowing that I think a lot of people's builds relied on the Zeiss goggles, you know, like 35% crit chance on one item thing. Yep. So we'll see how that alters the build overall.
This is what we learned about how people would make decisions and how they'd value one particular amplifier over another, and how they'd value different stats. We have a lot of amplifiers, mods, that give you bonus attributes, but people generally valued the attributes that were harder to find on an artifact more than they did the ones that were ubiquitous, right? So people would say, like, I would love to get more crit on a mod, and they're like, okay, I like extra damage on a mod, but I could just buy another artifact. Right. That's something telling us that for the elective power of mods, like I just want it on this guy right here because it's core to my build, then it's actually a little more valued.
Absolutely. So crit seems to be one of the biggest things that was concerning amplifiers and the way we were going to balance that. Yeah, and also when we were looking at the power that just a little bit of move speed gave you on some of those like early jungle assassin practice sets, the preview sets for the amplifiers, and just in our internal testing and stuff, we also needed to make move speed a little bit more expensive per point because it makes a big difference. We don't do boots. We have move speed sprinkled around on different artifacts, and the ability to pick it at the outset on the augments was a pretty big deal. So absolutely. So let's see. Is that one of the biggest things that you focus on? Have anything else that you want to talk about, or? Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things we keep coming back to is we like watching how people will play our game. We like looking at the builds that we see on sites. We like talking to our players just when we're playing. You might see an IC_ in a game. Hopefully they're cordial and they say hi, and hopefully, you know, afterwards they'll hang around, you know, in the chat afterwards and talk about, you know, what worked, what didn't. Right. We want to find out what you guys are playing with and how you're succeeding. We don't want to, you know, ruin your fun by discovering, you know, the broken combos, but ultimately, if the broken combo is out there and it's
not aligned with the purpose of the artifact, it's something that we should look at.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're using the artifact how it's meant to be used, you know, you're getting Rip Hunter's time pack and you're using the time anchor and just jumping around all over the place, yeah, that's
definitely something you want to see, right?
I would love to see that. I want to see more Bleed Portal. I want to see.
Yeah, there should definitely be some Bleed Portal action. I think there are a couple of really fun videos of it, but only for people who really, really know how to utilize it really well.
Yes.
At this point, whereas it's not really a super accessible thing at the moment.
No. But also, coming up, a little preview mod, there's going to be a mod for the Bleed Portal artifact, which will allow you to reverse the order that you're specifying the exit and the entrance.
Really?
Yes. So normally, what you're doing is you're specifying the exit first. That's the first thing you use it on, right? You use it on an environmental object, a car, a rock, or whatever. And then you go and, yes, Celestrata, I really do love the Bleed Portal. It's really good. And now what you can do is you take this mod, and then you can specify the exit, the entrance first.
Right.
Sorry, the exit first, and then you can go and specify the entrance, and you can use it yourself. That's the real difference. When you put this mod on it, it's something that when you create it, it's something that you can then move and jump through, and you can take the rest of your team with you as well. And I just made someone's dreams come through.
Finally!
Sweet.
Finally, my dreams came true.
So you guys wanted the order of those things reversed? I had no idea. I just randomly decided to do that because I thought it would be fun.
Well, I think mass telly for everyone. I mean, that is a pretty fun thing.
Yep. So the other thing about that mod is it also doubles the cooldown, because I do think the ability to use it yourself is pretty darn valuable. But there you go. You know, I mean, if someone finds the bleed rock that you have already hidden around in a bush, something like that, then they could just, you know, consume it or detonate or something like that. They can counter you, and it'll put you on cooldown. But anyways, more Bleed Portal. I want to see it on your videos. I want to see it doing awesome things.
All right, guys. Well, I think that wraps up the end of this. If you have any questions about, not the end of the everything, just bear with me for a second. The first part of the show is over. We're going to bring the stream down and be back in just a couple of minutes so we can actually show you the amplifiers and mods.
Oh,
well,
great.
the augments and the mods that you're going to be seeing. So we're going to be back in just a few minutes. Hold any of your questions because we will answer them for you. But thanks for watching thus far, and don't go anywhere.
Yes, we'll be right back.